The Hasselblad X2D II 100C is probably more camera than I'll ever need. But with that said, I feel that this camera is what the photography industry needs right now. So for some context, my daily carry camera is the Ricoh GR3X HDF. But earlier this year, I got the opportunity to try the Hasselblad 907X100C. It was my first time in a while using a medium format camera, and I absolutely love the experience and the image quality of this camera. I would have to say though, usability wise, its form factor and the way that it operates requires slow, deliberate use. And for me, sometimes that's not always the case. Now enter the Hasselblad X2D II 100C. Hasselblad reached out and gave me the opportunity to review this camera, and honestly, I couldn't say no. And I know what you're probably already thinking. It doesn't really fit the price range of most of the cameras that I feature on this channel. But before you drop a hate comment, let's just put this into perspective. This is getting the opportunity to test drive a dream camera of mine, and maybe for a lot of you. I think the best analogy for this would be, I have my own daily driver car. If someone offers you the chance to drive a Porsche GT3 RS on a track and be able to make some content on it, are you really going to turn that down? So first, let's start with the basics, the body and the design. The ergonomics of this camera are incredible, specifically the grip. The grip has just an incredible feel to it in the hand. It also balances very well, even with this like really big zoom lens. And when you use it with the prime lenses, it just feels even better. And in comparison to the 907X, there's quite a few buttons that you can map and change. And for me, my favorite thing is being able to map a quick access button to the X-Pan crop to be able to just quickly tap a button and be able to look at things in kind of a very cinematic perspective. And I think every single camera should have that. And I like that this camera allows you to clear the tilt screen away from the EVF protrusion. And as far as like the build quality, the materials, this camera just feels very premium. The funnest detail of this camera, the little grip on the lens, is actually like little H's, the Hasselblad H's of the logo. So next up, let's talk about the autofocus. The 907X100C, it didn't have AFC, which was kind of a difficult thing for me because I tried to use it when photographing some IndyCar racing and IMSA racing. On the X2D II, the autofocus feels very snappy and confident, which is surprising for a medium format system. I think that's the combination of the phase detect autofocus as well as the new LiDAR detection that it has built in. Being able to combine not only just contrast detection, phase detect autofocus, and LiDAR, so 3 different technical components into the autofocus, is really, moving toward what the future of photography autofocus systems will be. It's quick, it's decisive, and it's very reliable, and it's not something that I expected on a medium format system. In-body image stabilization. IBIS is not something that I actually rely on for my photography techniques, but the IBIS on this camera is not something that I expected. So on the 907X, the camera shake was actually kind of an issue for me because shots that I thought normally I would be able to handhold at 1/160 of a second are actually coming out unsharp when I was shooting at Comic-Con inside a kind of a lower light convention center. But on the X2D II, the 10-stop IBIS 5-axis stabilization on this camera completely changes that usability. And it's not only just usable now, it's actually a creative tool. With this camera, I've been able to shoot like 4 seconds or even like 6-second long exposures, all handheld, no tripod. Like, let that sink in a little bit. The IBIS system lets me shoot freely without having to set up, but still be able to create images that are a little bit more abstract or taking advantage of motion and lights like they were shot on a tripod. It's one of those features and technological advances that doesn't just make shooting easier, but it kind of like expands what's possible moving forward. Let's talk about this lens, the XCD 35-100E. Normally, your boy is a prime lens shooter. Like, you all know that. But as an engineer, I used to be a mechanical engineer, I can appreciate the design behind this medium format zoom. So 35 millimeters to 100 millimeters on a medium format is going to be somewhere around the lines of like a 28 to a 76 millimeter equivalent in that full frame focal range. And it's an f2.8 to 4, which is pretty crazy for a medium format because the prime lens that I have is a 2.5. Sure, it's a little bit larger and it's a lot larger than my typical kit of the Ricoh GR3X. But this thing is like sharp across the entire zoom range. Even at the extreme ends of the focal lengths, you can still crop in and retain incredible detail. If you've seen any of the Hasselblad stuff, the 100 megapixel sensor has the superpower of being able to crop into little parts of the frame to create new photos. What Hasselblad has done with this camera, it's really paving the way for the future for the photography industry. And I think that's where Hasselblad sets it apart from all the different camera brands. I'm a big fan of Formula One, and just like in Formula One, there are technological breakthroughs like regenerative braking, really strong aerodynamics, and even carbon fiber materials that started in Formula One racing and then eventually made their way into production cars. I feel like Hasselblad isn't afraid to do the same thing for the photography space. They already refined a great camera that they had in the X2D as well as the 907X, but with the X2D II, what they're doing is adding IBIS that's pretty much out of this world, improving the controls, and they're also not afraid to push the boundaries in terms of like having 1 terabyte of storage. This camera has the Hasselblad natural color science as well as the new HDR high dynamic range ability of the camera. The screen and the EVF all supports HDR all the way through the Focus Mobile 2 app, so it lets you be able to, get more detail in your highlights and shadows throughout the entire process so you can see what's going on. It's showing that Hasselblad is making sure that these cameras are future proof for down the road. And I know most people would say like these features are like extra. We don't really need them. Before, autofocus used to be a luxury, auto ISO, even EVFs when they were new. We survived without them. But now it's kind of hard to imagine working without those technologies. And I think what Hasselblad is doing is that they're paving the way for what the future can look like and innovating on features that people may not even be asking for just to show what cameras can do nowadays. Hasselblad is taking some gambles and bets on what could be something that is very core to workflow in the future. That's what the photography industry needs, is a brand that's willing to push everything forward instead of just trying to compete with the brands below them. As a photographer and a fellow camera enthusiast, I'm very excited to be able to use a camera like this and experience what's basically possible. Because it's not a camera that most of us are probably going to daily drive and like take everywhere with us. But every once in a while, it's worth taking a dream camera like this for a spin.